our people to see not the secularized concept of what masculinity is that's been taught under this kind of underlying narrative or current that's carried people along, but how do we help people to foster a biblical idea of what masculinity is, even though we've all been formed by the culture around us in ways that we don't even realize? How do we continue to really get back to that idea of masculinity, the way that God's?
Well, yeah, I'm glad you started with the phrase "be a man," because many people are using that both positively and negatively. The progressives are using it negatively, like, oh, this is a way that we impose toxic masculinity on boys. And then you see Christians arguing the opposite and saying, no, it means, we should be more masculine. And ironically, it only appears twice in the scripture, and both times it means grow up. It means the manhood is being compared to childhood, not to womanhood. It's not saying don't be feminine. It means don't be immature. And by the way, that's the meaning it had in America right until the turn of the century. Secular historians say that. They say when people use the phrase "be a man" in our own American literature, up until the turn of the 20th century, they meant grow up, be mature. So they were taking that meaning from scripture. And then secondly, you can't write a book like this without having some practical solutions, which you alluded to as well. And that is that many people are finding that they want to find a way to rebuild the family. When you mentioned multi-generation households, the number was in the 40%. Like, what? 40% of new homes, of new requests are being made for, I want a place for my parents to live in a slightly, separate apartment, but attached. I was amazed at how high the numbers are, that either for parents or for returning, the parents have a separate apartment for returning children, both of them. And since the pandemic, it has become more acceptable to talk about how important it is to flex the workplace so that you can work part-time from home. One survey found that 65% of men said they got closer to their families during the pandemic, and they don't want to go back to work full time. They would like to have some, 2 days a week at home or whatever, some way of having more time at home. And that statistic is in my book, Toxic War and Masculinity. But then another one came out more recently. So I'll tell you about this one because it's not in the book. But the New York Times actually had an article with a title something like, during the pandemic, many fathers got closer to their children and they don't want to lose that. And I thought, well, there's a silver lining to the pandemic. It has made it more acceptable. So I have a whole chapter on ways that fathers in particular have tried to find ways to flex their work, have some time at home, even sometimes start a home-based business. I'll give you just one for a concrete example. I had a student whose husband was an IT professional, and during the pandemic, he came home to work. And because he was home, he was able to be more involved with the homeschooling. He decided he would be the one to make lunch every day. He began to be the one to take the kids to soccer and so on. And his wife, my student, was freed up enough from the family responsibilities that she started a part-time job. She was speaking of opera, we talked about opera earlier. She was an opera singer. One of my students was an opera singer. And so she started a part-time voice studio, and the entire family benefited from the additional income. So I interviewed her husband, and he said, our family life is so much more balanced now. I am never going back to a cubicle. And the final kicker was, he said, the time that I used to spend commuting to work, I now spend praying with my wife every morning. So I tried to give examples like that. There's no general principle. All you can do is give lots of anecdotes to help encourage people to think creatively about ways in which they might be able to adjust their work structure. Surveys show that millennials are really asking for more flexibility because they want more balance. They want to share jobs and earnings and raising kids. They want to share that a bit better between husband and wife. It's not always easy these days, but so I have a whole chapter just kind of trying to encourage people to at least think about it. And women too. I mean, I don't think I know any women who are home with children who are not doing some sidekick, some income producing activity on the side. So women have been doing this for a long time, trying to do economically productive work while raising their kids, and in a sense recreating the colonial pattern, where both men and women could combine childbearing with economically productive work. And so they both had a better balance. We kind of act like women were given the half of the cultural mandate, be fruitful and multiply, and men were given the other half, subdue the earth, but they were given to both men and women. And I think both men and women are happier when they have a chance to have a more balanced life, doing both parts of the cultural mandate.